Bay frogs. To his fans, he's like Ronnie Cox, you see. More specifically, Ronnie Cox when he helmed the USS Enterprise NCC 1701D. Not sure you realize this, but with the exception of Patrick Stewart, Ronald Coxer has the honor of being the captain of the TNG-era USS Enterprise for more Star Trek episodes than anyone else. Yes, even more than Riker, who was only in command for the episode The Best of Both Worlds Part 2, and no, you fool, the episode Future Imperfect doesn't count because that was a simulation run by an alien child, you fucking fool. The point is that Ronnie Cox played Captain Edward Jellicoe in the two-part episode Chain of Command, and boy, the crew did not like the way he did things.
Well, now that the ranks are dropped, Captain, I don't like you either. You are arrogant and closed-minded. You need to control everything and everyone. You don't provide an atmosphere of trust, and you don't inspire these people to go out of their way for you. You've got everybody wound up so tight. There's no joy in anything. I don't think you're a particularly good captain.
Yeah, you tell him, Riker, you bearded dragon you. Captain Ronald Coxer was a hard ass. He made everyone work long hours and did not coddle his crew to the point of being cold and borderline sociopathic. But the twist of that episode was that, in the end, Captain Ronnie Cox actually averts a war and saves Picard from capture. In his coxy heart, Ron understood what it means to be a starship captain. And despite his unconventional ways, he eventually pulled through. He had a plan. And I think that's probably what Elon Musk wants people to think about the way he's operating things at Twitter. Not a people person asking for long hours, etc. But surely he knows what he's doing. The problem is that, unlike Ronnie Cox, it's become very clear that Elon Musk hasn't the fart of an idea what he's doing with Twitter, short of only slightly possibly buying Twitter to completely change it into his everything app idea, which he didn't want to make himself, thus making Twitter unrecognizable and laughing in the face of the version of Elon who says he hates monopolies. But it's become clear that Elon was less like Ronnie Cox, the starship captain, and more like Ronnie Cox, the megacorporation CEO killed by his own hubris. And so, faced with this reality, Musk's only hope was to convince people that his ineptitude was still better than what the old Twitter was like, even though it really seemed like there was nothing overtly wrong with the site before he purchased it. He needed to justify this wailing clown show, and this is where the Twitter files came into play. In short, the Twitter files were, and I guess are, a series of tweets by a small group of hand-picked journalists releasing internal emails and messages that were supposed to prove, more big quotes, that before his takeover, Twitter was secretly motivated by corrupt leftists who hated free speech. Elon has said that Twitter had a left-wing bias for a while, despite there actually being no proof of that. And in fact, by all other accounts, Twitter's algorithm actually favored the right wing in the past. The closest to an anti-conservative bias is the fact that most social media cracks down hard on misinformation, and it turns out that conservatives are more likely to post misinformation on social media. Interesting detail there about how conservative ideology is synonymous with universally accepted misinformation. So the idea behind the Twitter files seemed to be for him to justify his purchase to the world, to show how he's saving free speech, and also, in my opinion, to try and justify Twitter as a place where news could break. Something that didn't happen until now. Elon's now claiming he invented the idea that news can break and be reported on Twitter. As you can expect from a billionaire known for, to put it lightly, not treating the employees that he has very nicely, Musk isn't exactly a fan of the mainstream media. And so an ongoing thread of his takeover was that he was going to make the news open source. Tech broify the news, blockchain the info, or FO for short. NewsX, dog, yeah! Get your crypto FO injected into that skull sphere. It's clear that a big part of his blue check animosity we mentioned in part 1 was specifically toward journalists. You can see this when he banned those journalists for reporting on Elon Jet. He was later confronted about it on Twitter Spaces, which is a live audio chat that anyone can join. Look at all of this free speech!
I just real quick, Elon, thank you for joining. I am hoping that you can give a little more context about what has happened in the last few hours with a handful of journalists being banned.
Yeah. Well, as I'm sure everyone who's been doxxed and would agree, showing real-time information about somebody's location is inappropriate, and I think everyone on this call would not like that to be known to them.
Drew, I don't think you were posting the real-time information, right?
I mean, you're suggesting that we're sharing your address, which is not true. And you're suggesting that we're posting. We never. I never posted your address.
You posted a link to the address.
We posted a link. In the course of reporting about Elon Jet, we posted links to Elon Jet, which are now not online and now banned on Twitter. And Twitter also, of course, marks even the Instagram and Mastodon accounts of Elon Jet as harmful.
You dox, you get suspended, end of story. That's it.
Elon, I have to ask, I mean, I think what everyone's wondering is it's highly unusual for journalists at the Washington Post and the New York Times to have their Twitter accounts suspended. And it just so happens that it's, the boss in charge, so, what's the deal there? Oh, I think Elon has left.
Dude just kept repeating, if you dox, you get banned, like some kind of awkward mantra, as these very serious people asked him equally serious questions about the inconsistencies in his banning, to the point that he not only stormed out of the call, but then temporarily removed Twitter Spaces from the platform under the excuse that it was undergoing maintenance. And this is actually nothing unusual, as Musk has never been able to handle it when people ask him tough questions. He's hung up on regulators before, and has a long history of claiming that the media is out to get him. In 2018, when BuzzFeed interviewed 9 people who had previously worked with Musk, they said this is how he's always been. The difference is that the facade he had created was starting to fall apart. So of course, he hates the press, because the press are the people chipping away at this curated facade, revealing him as the transparent man baby that he really is. And transparent is about to become an important word, not just because he's the parent of a trans kid who hates him, but because along with claiming that he would save free speech on the site, Musk's Twitter files was an attempt to defy the leftist mainstream media by exposing Twitter's old fascist moderating machine with the totally transparent release of communications that went on behind the scenes before he took over. Because Musk, he's doing free speech and transparency, you see. That's why he's now threatening to sue his own employees for leaking any information about Twitter. That's why he removed the labels showing what devices a tweet was done on, something that actually had a journalistic merit when tracking the tweets of politicians. It's almost as if, and just stick with me here, Elon Musk doesn't actually care about journalism. He might even hate journalism. And so while it's absolutely important to hold the media accountable because they quite often suck turds and or shits, Musk doesn't actually want to do that. And so the Twitter files really seem to be a disinformation tactic, disguised as a journalistic scoop, one that would feed certain right-wing circles so perfectly that they'd forever join Elon's little online army. It's propaganda that compounds itself the moment any reporter points out that they were a, quote, nothing burger. Not a great word, but we're using it. Because the true believers can dismiss that immediately as yet another leftist media lie. But the reality is that the Twitter files contain very little proof of anything in terms of Twitter. And don't get me wrong, there's actually some pretty interesting shit in there when it comes to the FBI and the government and social media sites generally. But for the most part, it was an illusion of transparency hidden in a highly curated series of threads done by a few misled journalists who themselves admitted to getting the information under specific conditions. And what they revealed, in a nutshell, is that Twitter used to moderate their social media site. That's kind of it. Additionally, they got a lot of government interference in their moderation efforts, which isn't to say that they followed orders from the government, but a pretty key detail is that despite a constant framing that Twitter favorited the left in their moderation, at no point do any of the Twitter files release statistical proof of that. The closest they get is showing that Twitter employed